10. Just going to go through this page on stratified sampling from the Data 1F pack. Okay, stratified sampling has almost been removed from the GCSE syllabus, but has kind of been replaced by something very similar called proportional representation. It's exactly the same thing really, except there's some minor differences. But if you can do this, and it's still an important skill to be able to have really, then you'll find its replacement no issue whatsoever. So probably the best way to just introduce this is to get stuck into the questions, but you will need to know this equation up here. Okay, so it's worth copying that down on your pack now, please. To work out how many people should be in your sample from a specific group, we do the group size divided by the population size times by the sample size. So let's apply this to this question. Ellen wants to do a survey with years 9, 10 and 11 at her school. The table shows the number of students in each of these year groups. Ellen takes a sample of 50 students stratified by year group. Stratified just means grouped. Work out the number of students from year 10 in the sample. So you can see that year 10 is the smallest year group in Ellen's school, and therefore in her sample it should take up the smallest proportion of those 50 people, so there should be fewer year 10 students in her sample than the other 2 years. And that's what stratified sampling means. It just means that the proportions within the sample match the proportions within the population, the year group in this case. The whole school. So we're just going to use this equation. We're interested in students from year 10, so that's the group size of 700. The population size is all of these added together. Now sometimes it tells you that in the question, but it doesn't here. So 1600, 2350 I think. And then we're going to times by the sample size, which is 50. Okay, what this does when we do this is it finds what proportion out of the overall are year 10s, and then it applies that proportion to the number 50. And that doesn't give us a whole amount of students. It gives us 14.9 if we round that, but we obviously need a whole number of students, so we're going to round that to 15 students. Okay. Number 2, we've got information about the year groups of 1,000 students in a school, so they've been nice to us this time, they've added that up, it comes to 1,000. Tony takes a sample of 50 and wants to know how many year 8 students to have in his sample. So we're going to take the group size, 180, divide it by the population size, which is 1,000, times by the sample size of 50. Okay, so it's just applying this over and over again actually. And that gives us a nice whole number this time, so 9 year 8 students are what we need. Number 3, we've got information about the inhabitants of a village and their ages. Bernard is going to carry out a survey about the local library. He wants to find out how often people have been to the library. Okay. Oh, well, this has got nothing to do with age. That should be times, I guess. Bernard decides to take a stratified sample. Why is it appropriate? Because the data is split into clear groups is always a good answer for this sort of thing. Okay, he takes a stratified sample of 100. Calculate the number of each age group that Bernard should choose. I think there's been a mistake in writing out this question. Should just be about ages, I think. So the number of each age group, that means we're going to have to do this 4 times. So we're going to have to start with this first group, and the group size is 693. Now we also need the population, so we need to work out the population of his village. Let's work that out first. (3,103). and the sample size is 100. And we need to do this 4 times with each of the groups. So for the age group 0 to 20, the answer should be 22 people. For the next age group, $39 people when we round that. For the third age group, $26 people. And for the last one, $13 people. And hopefully all of these will add up to 100. So let's check that. So that'll be 61, 18.7. Yeah, they add up to 100. Sometimes, occasionally they don't, due to rounding issues, but it's very unlikely they would ask a question like that now. Okay. Number 4, we've got information about the number of students in the 2 years of a 6th form. Amy wants to interview some of these students and take a random sample of 70, stratified by year and by gender. So not only stratified in terms of what year they're in, but also by their gender. So this is a two-way table this time. Work out the number of students in the sample who are male and in the lower 6th. Well, we do this exactly the same way. We just zero in on that group specifically. So 399. We need to know how many students there are altogether. And that is 1,451. And we've got a sample size of 70. So that's 19 students. And number 5, we've got 300 passengers on a flight, a stratified sample is taken, and we've got some information. We've got to complete the table. Okay, well, first things first, we were told there were 300 people on the flight. We've been shown how many children and how many adult females there are, so we're just going to do a subtraction to work out the number of adult males. So these will add up to 168, which means 132 must have been adult males. And now we can actually work out the proportion as well. So what has happened to this number to turn it into 18? So if we do 108 divided by 18, we've divided it by 6, so we're going to do the same with each of these. So in other words, our sample size is just 1/6 of the population size. And there we go. Okay, I'll go through the next page on the next video.